Hi, Taylor.
Hi, Amy.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good.
Have you done a few of these before?
I have, but it's been a while, and now I have an upcoming seller appointment, and it's for a condo, and I haven't done a condo. So I'm like, maybe I should pop on.
That's exactly what I'm doing. I've got a townhome.
Okay.
So it's actually my first listing in general. So I'm like, I should probably brush up on
Yay.
this.
Well, that's good. Well, I've only had one other one too, and mine was 10 acres with
Oh, wow.
a sewer issue or
Oh,
septic issue and a well. It was very interesting. I learned a ton,
yeah, I bet.
but um, but yeah, now with the condo, I'm like, oh, this is like the opposite extreme.
Yeah. Oh,
So
man. Well, hopefully we both learn a whole bunch.
yes, for sure.
Yeah, my appointment's actually later this afternoon. So
Oh, okay.
thankfully it's with my cousin's ex-wife. So
Okay.
she's
So it's
very,
not like you don't know that her or whatever.
yeah, basically family. So
Yeah. Well, that's good.
yeah, it's a good
I know,
first.
and I was going to just rewatch a recording, but then I'm like, oh, I have a few questions. So
Yeah, it'll be nice to do like the real scenario.
yeah, for sure. So, and I'm guessing there's a lot of similarities with townhomes and condos. So
Yes, I think we're in the right spot. So
yeah, for sure.
when's your appointment?
Well, it's not officially scheduled. She just reached out. So I helped them buy we just closed on the June 15th for a twin home.
Yeah,
So now they've been slowly moving out. And actually my buyers bought a place for their son. So he has some health issues. So now they've been slowly moving out. They're pretty much moved out. And then, so I haven't been to the condo yet, but
nice. Well, I'm
yeah. So within the week or so is
cool.
what she said.
Well, that's exciting.
Yes, it is. I know. I, yeah, when I did my listing, I did enjoy it. It was, and yeah, there's a lot of work up front, but then it is a little, a
Yeah.
little easier than going to
I'm
all these showings.
Oh yeah. I'm definitely excited for it, but a little nervous, like
Oh,
just to make sure I've got everything. I'm like, oh, I'm
uh,
gonna be texting Jessica a lot.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's
But
okay.
yeah, it's good to know like I could pretty much reach out to anyone still. So
Yeah, for sure. I know. And I had reached out to, well, first Janie Tudawal and then Corey ended up helping me with the septic stuff.
oh,
So,
cool.
so if you ever have a septic, I don't know,
Yeah.
like he's clearly has sold a lot of properties that
I
has one, but
actually got quite a bit of experience on that with the cabin when we bought that.
oh yeah, that's right. Because
I'm so glad we did that, and I'm so glad it was actually I was doing the transaction and it was for me, so I was kind of like double involved.
yeah.
And having the septic compliance and the well, which
Um,
actually wasn't even a well, it was like a sand point.
oh gosh.
And the sellers, their agent thought like for sure we would not be able to put less than 20% down because of the well.
Okay.
And my lender kept telling me it's fine. I've talked to everybody, it's not a big deal. And she was like so adamant we had to put 20% down. I was like, I I'm being told no. So
Yeah.
we ended up not having to do.
Oh, good.
But
Well, my seller's septic was not compliant,
oh,
but it
yeah.
was, it's in Scott County and it doesn't have to be compliant to sell.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was, like I said, it was very, I'm like, oh, it was very complicated, but in the end, it did affect the price a little bit, but
Okay.
they came to an agreement and, you know, it could have been way worse.
Yeah. Wow.
So, hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Sorry that I'm a minute or two late. There's no one in person, so I wasn't sure anyone would be on Zoom. You guys are impressing me.
We both have listings coming
We
up.
both have listings coming up and it's new situation. So I'm like, oh, I better get a little refresher.
Good call. Cool. Well, ready to get started?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Share my screen and we'll log into the North Star MLS. And then do you guys want to, do you want to just see if there's specific questions that you'd like to have answered? Or do you want me to go through the whole 2-hour spiel?
Hmm.
I probably don't need the whole 2 hour
Yeah.
thing, but if other people do, that's fine.
I have definitely been to quite a few of these and I've watched some of the recordings. So probably just a brush up and specific questions, I think.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, I'll go into my folder that I use with a summary of what all the listing documents are, and then you guys can kind of let me know, like, oh, I've got that one down pat, or yes, will you please refresh me on this? Do either of your listings, are they a part of a association, or I heard you talking about well and septic? Do either of them have that?
No.
Association.
Yep.
Mine's a condo.
Oh, okay, great.
Mine's a townhome, so.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, then maybe what I'll do is I'll just go right to those forms. So your seller is gonna need to make sure and request from their association all of the association documents. And then they're also going to want to request a full resale disclosure.
Okay.
They have to pay for that and it is kind of expensive. So be sure to give them a heads up on that. Just go down here and see. Okay. So when a part of an association, there is a state statute, so state law mandated 10-day right of rescission, where it is the seller's obligation to provide the buyer with all the information and background that they need to know and that they need to have to make an informed decision whether or not they can afford and are comfortable living within the rules and regulations of the association. So it is the seller's responsibility by state statute to provide to them what's called a resale disclosure statement, sometimes called a resale disclosure certificate. For sure, they have to provide that. And it is also appreciated and helpful if they provide the declaration of the association, any amendments to that declaration, articles of incorporation, the bylaws, rules and regulations, and the budget of the association. And the resale disclosure statement is kind of a summary of all this, but it is absolutely best if the seller can pay the higher amount and obtain all of this for the buyer.
Okay.
And you have it, you'll send all of those documents along with this receipt over to the realtor representing the buyer. And that person, either that realtor or they'll have their buyer sign it, will sign acknowledgement that they've received all those things. And that's what starts the 10-day state statute right of rescission. So having this receipt is not a requirement for auditing, it's not a requirement for real estate and contract law. It's just a way to stay organized, to stay thorough, and to document everything that you sent over to them, along with, of course, contact information for the management. You guys will get that from them when you fill out the listing input form anyway.
Sure. Melissa, I have seen, like, just in helping buyers, they've already had it uploaded in the MLS.
Yeah.
So how does that affect the 10-day?
Yeah, so let me go in here and see. I think we go over the CIC addendum.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I think we go over the CIC addendum when doing the buyer boot camp, but I'm gonna add 2 forms here so I can go over them with you guys now. Okay, give me 1 second. So you'll notice that in representing buyers in the past, you've included the addendum to the purchase agreement saying you acknowledge that your buyer is buying in a condo, townhome, CIC community. And that's really lengthy. It gives the explanation as to why there's a 10-day right of rescission. However, you can modify that down to a 3-day right of rescission. You just can't go any lower than that. So I'm going to show you both of those forms then. So when the person, when people make an offer on your listing that you guys have, they'll include this, and it is many, many, many pages. It's too much, in my opinion. But they have to go over what the state law is and talking about, excuse me, are there any assessments on the association? Are they putting new roads in? Are they doing new landscaping? Are they doing new driveways? Are they doing anything that would, cause additional expenses? So that's what will come over most likely. You may also, if you have all these documents ahead of time, which is really good and really well organized, it sometimes bites you if the property is listed for a very long time and then the lender might say that the resale disclosure form is too old because it needs to have like snap at this moment exact information about the finances of the association.
okay,
But we may, if it sells quickly, see this from one of the buyer realtor representatives. And this says that on a residential transaction, the 10-day right of rescission period after the delivery of that disclosure statement can be modified, but only after they've had the chance to review the disclosure statement for 3 days. So it says here that the purchase agreement signed by the buyer, it must be evident in a separate instrument for 3 days after having received it. So you can't eliminate it altogether. You can just reduce it to 3 days.
okay,
So you would write in the date then here that they received the disclosure statement, and that's why that receipt is so helpful. And they acknowledge that they then modify it down to just 3 days, or if they want to waive it at like day 5, day 6, day 7, so on and so forth, they can waive the remaining days, but they have to view it for 3 days. Make sense?
mhm,
Right, very good. So I think then, knowing that they're both in CICs, that's valuable, I think, to go over all that. Do you have any further questions about the CIC? If not, I'll just start at the top. So I know you guys are very familiar with how to talk through agency. The listing contract, we can go over here unless you guys tell me that you want me to skip over it.
a good review, or whatever.
Perfect. Okay. So when I'm representing a seller and I've gotten to the point where I'm having them sign a listing agreement, I know a lot about them already. I know a lot about their property already. I know a lot about their motivation, what terms they would accept. So I breeze through this pretty quickly unless I'm working with a seller who's incredibly analytical and really wants me to go over things in a lot of detail. So I'm gonna go over it pretty quickly with you guys. We want to make sure that the date that the listing contract is dated in the top right is the exact same as the listing contract start date on line 9, and also the same date that they sign it. The date that they sign it, if there's 2 parties, the date that the last one signs it is the contract effective date. And then as you guys know, it has to be uploaded into the North Star MLS within 48 hours after that. And so it's really, really important that you do this, and you do this thoroughly, and that you do it quickly. I'm gonna just close out of this really quick and say, if you feel like you need to have them sign this, but they're not ready for it to go on the North Star MLS yet, As you probably will remember, you can do what's called a certification to withhold, which means you don't have all the info, you don't have everything tied up, they're definitely not ready to take pictures yet or show it yet. So you can do something that's called withhold from the North Star MLS. So you've uploaded it, but you're still going to be slowly trickling in and improving your listing while it's being withheld. So they do have to sign that, and you do still have to get it along with the listing agreement to the front desk so that they can upload it to the North Star MLS. And this can just stay in withheld status forever and ever. The thing that's so helpful about signing withheld along with your listing agreement is if for some reason they get lured by another realtor, if their neighbor says, oh gosh, why didn't you list with our golfing buddy? Did you forget he was a realtor? Or, they discover that their niece just graduated from real estate school and just put her license with Edina Realty. Having a listing agreement signed and then this withhold with it is a good way to protect yourself and all of the efforts that you've put in already from being undercut by someone else who might come in and try to list it.
Sure.
Any questions on that?
Nope.
Nope.
As the, did you chop your hair? I like it. Are you here for Seller Bootcamp?
No, is that at 10:30?
It's at 10.
Oh, no,
What do you
I'm
have
in
at
here,
10:30?
we have a meeting at 10:30, so I'll just come back.
Oh, you do, gotcha, okay, no problem. This form does sound a little bit scary to your sellers because this is going to keep your property from being broadcasted to the largest market and it eliminates the ongoing benefits, so on and so forth. But it only stays in the withheld status until they're ready to go into the active status. Another option that they could use if they're not ready to, show their house and take all the pictures quite yet, is they can list it as a coming soon listing. The difference between withheld and coming soon is when it's in the withheld status, we can show it to other realtors and other buyers, but when it's in the coming soon status, it can't be shown to anyone whatsoever. And that would be the form that you use here. You would have the listing contract start date, whatever that is, that all the dates match up, and then you would have an available date not to exceed 3 weeks from the date that the listing was signed. So coming soon can be the status of a listing, which is then available and visual on the MLS, but only for a maximum of 3 weeks. All right, so let's go back to this listing contract. So when sitting down with a seller, you would say, all right, fantastic, I'm so appreciative for the opportunity to list your home. The property address is listed up here. It's in the city of X, Y, and Z, which falls within the county in the state of Minnesota. The legal description, which I took from the county records, is this, and I'm going to put in your names here as the legal owners and the sellers of the property. This form doesn't ever go to the title company, so you don't have to write, like their legal names or be as worried about the details of their legal names here. This is really just kind of a agreement and a handshake between Keller Williams and the seller. No one else, the mortgage companies, the title companies, they don't see it. We like to have our listing contracts for 1 full year. You just never know what might change, and it's a good idea to have it for as long as possible. But if you're working with a really analytical buyer or someone who seems very nervous about selling your home, you may say to them, typically our listing contracts are for 1 full year, but I understand you've interviewed a lot of realtors and that you'd like to give me kind of a trial period just until late fall. So we'll start this on today's date, or whatever date you're going to be having them sign it. So we'll start it today, and we'll just end it whenever you guys are comfortable. So I'm going to suggest that if I don't have your house sold by November 1st, we both probably want to revisit and reevaluate how this listing is going if I'm the right person for the job. As we've talked about with our market analysis, the list price that we agreed to for this condo is going to be $200,000. And because it's in a condo, there may be some restrictions as to the type of financing that the condo or the townhome association are approved for. It's oftentimes that condo and townhome buildings are not approved for FHA financing. And this isn't in a rural area, so it would be USDA financing. And you're not in a position where you could sell your home for contract for deed, so we don't need to list it for that as well. But I would presume that you'd accept any cash offer. Certainly, a conventional mortgage is a good option. And then to thank those veterans if they want to utilize their VA benefits. Let's offer that as a financing term as well. I need to make sure that you understand once you sign this listing agreement with me, This gives my brokerage the ability to list and market the property for sale. We'll do things like put a lockbox on your front door, we'll place a for sale sign in your front yard. And also to give most exposure and marketing to your home, we will also be syndicating this on all these other various real estate websites. So you need to give me permission that you do want me to syndicate it. There's also a possibility where you may not want your actual listing addressed on the internet, and that's okay. I'm sorry, you may not want the address actually listed on the internet, and that's okay. You may not want to allow an automated valuation of the property, which is commonly referred to as this estimate. And you may also not want to allow anyone to make comments. That would be if someone said, oh, that condo, that one always has people, listening to loud music too late at night. I can only imagine the damage that's in there. So you as a consumer have the right to choose all of these options, but I do have to tell you, if you check no for any of these, the Realtor.coms and the Zillows of the world are very likely going to say, then you know what, we're just going to choose not to syndicate this one. So you may not get the maximum exposure that you're looking for, but we respect your privacy, and if you choose no on any of these, understanding the consequences, we'll absolutely honor that. This property is going to sell very quickly, I'm sure of it, but if it doesn't sell, there is a possibility that I can help you list it on the North Star MLS for lease. Is that something that would be of interest for you? Most people are going to say it's not and may not. We then go on to help the seller understand what their obligations are. So they need to provide us those association documents and pay for them. They still need to be paying for the maintenance, the utilities and such on the home. They need to give us access to the property when we request it. They need to be cooperative when it comes to showings and inspections and whatnot. We want to make sure that they understand by state law, state statute, they are prohibited from intercepting any oral communication without consent, even though it's at their property. If the people who are touring the property haven't given consent for their communication to be recorded in the home, that could be a large lawsuit. So we're going to encourage them to take down those baby monitors, take down the nanny cams, take down the Ring doorbell. Not a lot of sellers listen to us on this, but we at least have disclosed it to them and educated them. It would be something that they would get in a lawsuit for, not necessarily for us, because we've already gone over this and have it signed in. They understand that once we take pictures of their house, that they have given us license to use that photography however we choose to as the brokerage, and also you as the individual salesperson. When doing the listing agreement, I usually skip over this section and I say, now we talked a little bit about compensation, and I'm going to come back to this with you, but I want to go over the rest of the document with you first. I think it just makes a little bit more logical sense, so we'll come back to it. As we've talked about before, the buyer of your condo townhome is likely going to be represented by another realtor and another real estate brokerage. And so Keller Williams Preferred Realty is a full service real estate brokerage, will pay that cooperating broker 2.7% of the total commission. There's also a possibility that someone may ask a realtor to write up the contract for them, but they don't want true technical full legal representation. And that's okay, that's their prerogative, that's their choice entirely, but we would pay them 2.7% where they're assisting or representing the seller. We also, as a full service to you, can help coordinate all of the closing details with the title company, and if you give me permission to do that by checking box 164 here, I'll take care of all of it for you. You can choose to coordinate all of that on your own if you prefer. Perhaps you have a friend or a neighbor or relative who does that type of line of business, and then you can just conduct all of that, but schedule all of that. But by checking line 164, you're giving me permission to send all these very confidential private legal documents to the title company that you select that I recommend. I'll give you a couple options. They have to acknowledge that there may be some additional expenses in addition to the commission. We ask them several times if they are a foreign individual, and we need them to give us the answer to that, is or is not. We also need to let them know that every Keller Williams office is independently owned and operated. And so we are a part of Keller Williams Preferred Realty, but at our brokerage, there's 200 very successful realtors that we work with. There's a possibility that someone from Keller Williams Preferred Realty is going to be representing the buyer of the house. And so that would enter into what's called a dual agency relationship, and the seller has to consent ahead of time whether they agree and understand what dual agency is and agree to it, or that for some reason they strongly feel that they do not agree to dual agency. I've had one seller in my 22-year career say that they did not agree to it. I was kind of surprised, but it didn't matter to me, but you do have to give them the choice. There's other terms in here that I don't go through because most sellers, by the time they get to this point, I'm just saying like, okay, whatever. So I will highlight just a couple things in here, like for example, I owe you the fiduciary responsibilities of loyalty and confidentiality. Those expire at the time of the closing, or they expire at the time of the contract end date that we had written at the top. It's also important for you to know anytime I ask you to sign something electronically, that's just as valid as signing with an inked signature. And this entire agreement is all going to be in writing. We're not going to be doing anything that is just a verbal. Before the two of you, before I go back to tell you about the commission, which is always the trickiest part of this contract, I want to check in with HHG. They always have their team meetings on Tuesdays, and they sometimes have them here in the training room. So I would just end this and start it back up in my office if that's what they're doing. One of the gals had walked through, so I'm just going to run back and ask them real quick. Do you guys mind?
No, not at all.
Okay, all right. It'll take me 1, maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
Amy, I was going to ask you, what did you do for a sign for your first listing?
I went to Fast Signs.
Okay. How
So-
fast was it?
They were fast. And actually
Okay.
I have them right here. But now with this condo, I'm not even sure I can hang a sign. Like that's something I'm gonna have to ask.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, like mine is, I don't know if you can see, it's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because I was out in the country,
Yep.
like it's for the white post.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I can hang a sign, I'm gonna have to get a sign made very quickly.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna do one of the big, the metal ones that you stick in the ground.
Oh,
I've done a bunch of opens for like HHG, and they always have those. And I'm like, if they're doing it, I could just do that.
right, then that's probably better than, well, and in a townhome, I don't think you do a white post anyways either.
Yeah, I would be worried about that. I don't know.
So I gotta figure that out.
Okay.
I am gonna log out of this and just log back on from my own office.
Okay.
So just hold tight, you guys stay right on it and I'll log back in.
Okay.
Cool.
I know, and I think I saw, didn't we just got an email with build a sign too? That might have been
I'm
so,
looking at it right now.
which I haven't used them, but I should have, maybe I'm gonna have to, I think I might have deleted that email. I better bring it back.
Yeah, I
Because I
actually
think-
used them before, but for ordering like a
Oh,
vinyl sign for my friend's birthday.
Okay, actually, maybe I used them. I can't remember where I ordered my open house signs. That might have been build a sign, actually.
Okay, yeah.
But I did fast signs. I think maybe because at the time I did need it like really quickly. And I think I got it within like a day and a half or
Oh,
something.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty fast. And they're in Burnsville, like
Okay.
down 42 more.
Oh, well,
Like
that's
by Abdallah, kind of over there somewhere.
okay.
So.
Well, I think my listing, we might want to go live on like Friday. So,
Oh gosh, okay. So
like, got to go do the appointment today,
and
and
then
probably a lot during the week here.
yes.
So,
So, yeah. This stuff is good to go over because I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
yeah,
It is a good review, which I'm glad these are recorded too as a way to go back.
definitely.
I guess technically we're being recorded right now, so.
Well, we're peeking, I've got a question and we're done.
Yeah, we're trying to. But I know I have to look back at who I used for a photographer because I needed the aerial.
Oh, sure.
But I don't think I need that for a condo necessarily. And then I saw there's a preferred vendor on our, like the dashboard or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I'm going to use my band. We've had a photographer who's been with us for the last 5 years or so, and I'm gonna use him. He's never done real estate photography, but he's very interested to like start. So I was like,
so that's awesome. A great opportunity for him then too.
yep. I was
Well,
like,
if he likes it and wants another gig, maybe.
I think he'll be cheaper too, because
Yeah.
we're good buddies, but
Well, feel him out if he is. I mean,
I will, yeah. I'll let you know. Or you'll
okay.
probably see, if I'll shoot you over the listing photo.
Yeah, do that. So,
And I have all the faith in him. He's done everything, weddings and I don't know. You can only put so much emotion into a picture of a house.
house, right. I think I have noticed, just in like looking
Mhm.
in the MLS, I'm like, oh, I can tell if somebody's used professional or not. Like it's more
Yes.
like the lighting, I feel like, but if you have experience with it or know about it, then
Mhm.
yeah.
For
Yeah, it's
me-
not like you're trying to capture. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess maybe size wise, make it look as big as you can, but
Mhm. The evening photos with like the house lights on or like a
Mhm.
sunset,
Oh.
I only see them once in a while for listings, usually
Yeah.
like nicer country places, but
yeah,
those ones really get me. And I'm like, and usually it's just one or two scattered in, but it's like,
It- oh,
it's
yeah,
nice.
because this is your view and it's important to some people and a lot of people actually,
Yeah.
so. Yeah. Last time I did a listing, I did do the withheld,
Okay.
and it just, for me, it was like less stress,
Yeah.
pressure, like, it gave me time to upload before we went live, I had time to get the pictures done and
Sure.
stuff, but
I think with the timeline I'm on, I might do coming soon,
Yeah.
or we might just straight go right on.
do it, right? Because
Yeah. She says she's got most of her stuff out already, so that's good. Which
That
means,
is good.
and she's not
Yeah.
living there anymore, so
So
that's
then,
super nice.
yeah. Yeah, my sellers won't be either, which it'll be
Are you
nice.
doing are you or did you do staging?
I didn't do staging. And I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like wondering, because I have a company that I was like going to work with, and they have a pretty good deal where they like will just charge 150 an hour, and they'll come in like with your photographer, and they'll stage each room before they take the picture. And so
Oh,
like, for 3 hours, I'm thinking it wouldn't be like terrible.
no.
If it would even take that, but
Let's ask Melissa, like if she like
Yeah.
now, like if that's important. Like I just feel like, before when it was such a seller's market, I feel like it wasn't even a thing. And I've seen,
Yeah.
I mean, just looking again through showing or listings too, they've done the virtual staging, which
yeah.
I'm not sure who
I was
does that.
I've been completely fooled by some of those, like,
Me too. And then they have the caption. I'm like, oh yeah.
yeah,
And
it
now I
looks
see it.
super nice. And without that virtual staging, I would not have had that idea or like nice image in my head.
Yeah, I know. So
You guys able to hear my microphone?
yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm working on things, but also tuning in. I saw this stat that homes that are staged sell for like 3 to 5 grand over. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on like what the seller is looking for, but I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
this one gal I follow on Instagram, she stages all her vacant properties and says they always sell over asking price. So I don't know, that's something to consider, but also it's an investment, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And what I'm thinking with this one is being that it's like kind of family, like I have this pressure of like really wanting to get them the best price
best.
possible. And so I'm thinking it might be worth it. Just for that case. Like if this was somebody I didn't know, I don't know if I'd be as worried about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, these are my neighbors, so I'm kind of like, I gotta, maybe
Well,
that's
then
almost worse than
it'll-
family because
it'll affect the price of your house too if you get more for it, you know?
well, they're keeping, they're selling a different condo from what they live in right now. So
But
yeah,
it is your neighbors. Okay, yeah, I got
yes, but yeah, my neighbors would be my clients.
you. Sure.
So
Okay.
want to keep the peace in the neighborhood too.
Oh,
How long have you guys been agents?
I got my license. It was like the end of February and then COVID hit. So 2000. It's over 2 years, but I do this part-time.
So,
I'm a mental health practitioner in a school.
oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. So
I just
how
got
about
my
you?
last October, so
That's October, sweet.
yep.
It's definitely a grind to start out, and I just got my license like a month and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm planning to meet with a couple that's looking to sell and buy on Monday, so I'm as well here to gain insight. Because
Yes.
second time in this class, and I'm still like, okay, like, do I feel confident enough to like run someone else through this? So
Yep.
Yeah.
It takes a couple of times. And then especially if there's a large gap in between, like I've
Yes.
done probably 3 or 4 of these now. But it was like 8 months ago. Now it's like
I know. And yeah, my last listing, it was November. So that's why I'm like, oh, I need a refresher.
full time has passed.
time, or are you part time as well?
I'm full time.
Cool.
I still do other little things here and there. So I'd say like
Hey, Melissa.
quarter time.
Okay.
I'm back. Sorry, that was a little bit of a hustle.
That's okay.
No
We've
worries.
been chatting up.
Signs and staging.
Good. Oh, good. It's funny because anytime I leave my office or leave the training room, someone inevitably stops me to ask me a question. So I had a couple questions. Then I realized my intern is working in my office and I didn't want to distract her. So then I went to a conference room, but then I didn't have the charger for my laptop. So it was just a little bit of a hustle. And we learn something new every day, don't we? Don't take for granted that the person who plans the training calendar also reserves the training rooms.
Yeah.
We were double booked in there.
Oh,
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the forums and I'll share my screen here eventually. When you guys were chatting amongst yourselves, did you come up with anything that you wanted me to weigh in on?
Just kind of like your, I guess, opinion on how important staging is right now.
How what staging is?
Important, like, is it it's very recommended? I know, in the past, yes. Is it still?
That's a hard one because staging is definitely an investment of money. And so that's usually people's largest consideration or largest reason for not doing is they don't want to outlay the money. And homes were selling so quickly over the last year or so that buyers could just see past any fancy staging. But as the market starts to shift, if you're trying to list something that just looks really beat up or is only sparsely furnished because someone's living there temporarily or casually, yeah, I mean, if you can convince them to do it, every little thing helps right now in a shifting market. Every little thing helps sell. But like, for example, I listed a townhome in Apple Valley about a month ago, and had been a rental property for 15 years. It was really beat up. We just cleaned it out completely, didn't do any staging, and it didn't sell the first day, but it sold within the first week or so. I also listed a single family home for a family that has 4 kids, and the house really was like quite cluttery. There was hardly anything on the walls because I had them take down so many personal photos. And again, they couldn't afford to do staging. And so it took about 2 weeks to sell, but it did eventually sell. So I guess to summarize, if your seller has the budget, it will absolutely help in a shifting market. If they don't have the budget, I don't think it's the end of the world.
Do you as an agent ever offer to pay for staging?
I never have. Never,
Okay.
ever.
Okay.
I know that there are some, oh, hi, Sydney. Have you been on here the whole time?
Yeah.
Ah, you've already heard my seller boot camp though, haven't you?
Yeah, but I'm meeting with some clients on Monday, and so I just want to refresh on everything.
For you. Yeah, that's exactly what Amy and Taylor are doing too.
Mhm.
So I'm sorry. I know that there are some large real estate teams that have a stager right on, kind of on their first call. And I know that those teams will pay for a staging company, but I never have. I
Okay.
think there's a difference too between like full on bringing furniture and accessories in and a stager who just takes what they already have and rearranges it and kind of lays it out.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be a
and my
lot more
place will be
affordable and
empty.
something you could pay for.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, what price point is it?
for me,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like around 180.
Then I think just leave it empty.
Okay.
Taylor, what's your price point?
We're at like 215 right now. That's what she wants.
And how does it look? Is it occupied?
She's mostly out. She's not living there, but she has some stuff left. So
Does she? Can she clean it all out?
I'm gonna actually my appointment is later this afternoon, so I'm gonna see if she will get everything out. And then unless, some of it's like workable and we can kind of stage with what she has. Because I have a stager, like a company that I've talked to, and they say they will come in and like stage set up like each room as the photographer is going through. And they're $150 an hour, and they say it usually doesn't take more than 3, like at the most. So
Oh yeah, I would say not even close to 3 hours. The
Yeah.
photographers are usually in and out really quickly.
Yep.
I do that on my own, like silly things when the pictures are being taken. I'll take like the hand soap and the Kleenex and the scale that they just left out in the bathroom because it's habitual, and I'll take it and I'll like tuck it in the hallway, and then I'll put it back when the picture is done. Because I feel like buyers sit and study those pictures for days and hours, but when they're actually walking through the property for their showing, they do it so quickly that then there's so much to look at, they don't notice the scale or the soap. But taking it out for the pictures is a really good idea.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, any other questions you wanted me to weigh in on?
Signs with like townhomes and condos. Do we have to check to see if they're allowed, or?
We do.
Okay.
Yep. So when reaching out to the association before the listing to, ask the questions of, what type of financing are you prepared for? Are you approved for? Are there any assessments? Tell me about your rules and regulations. Do I have the proper phone number and the actual point person for this specific association, usually within your really large property management firm? Ask that as well. Do you allow signs? And most of them will say no.
Okay.
So then you don't even have to bother.
Okay.
Fortunately or unfortunately.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, because I'm like, oh, my signs are so big. If I need to do a sign, I need to have a small one made.
Yeah. It's a good idea to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Oops, hang on one second. Actually, I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to go back to that commission. So the reason I scan over commission is because when you just throw it out there to them like, oh, and by the way, my commission is 6%, there can be a lot of, question, concern and whatnot. But when you go all the way to the bottom and talk about the obligations that I owe to you, how I'm paying the cooperating realtor this 2.7%, I'm scheduling the closing for you, I just feel like it gives more value. So do note in this other section that there are some automated clauses that I've created for myself that I encourage you to create as well. Did you guys see here where I was able to check in the section and then do this add clause, and then you'll have personal clauses. And the one that I have is for the broker administrative commission. And then there may be others that you want to create for yourself, but it is commonly asked, at least right now, about this, about the, variable rate commission. So you're going to want to make sure and disclose on both your listing input form and also on your listing contract that there is a possibility for a variable rate commission. So you'll go back up to the commission section where these forms change every year, and we're just about to come to another change, but you'll come up here and you'll say what your commission is going to be, and then you'll write plus the $4.99 broker administrative fee. Oops, I must have run out of space here. And if you prefer to just keep the 6% up here, you can write that you have the $4.99 broker administrative fee either in here or in the other section. It really doesn't matter as long as we can come back and say that indeed you guys, as the realtors representing the sellers, disclosed both the dual agency and both the variable rate commission and the $4.99 broker administrative fee. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I
Melissa,
really don't care which section it's in.
I think I had remembered you had said that you had never done the variable commission. Is that still something you would say?
Yeah, I don't often put in my listing agreement that I would agree to a variable rate commission. But if you're working with a real strong-willed, tough cookie seller who says, now wait a minute, and I'm going to agree to dual agency and you're going to make this full 6%, like, are you really doing enough work to make the full 6%? Then that's when I would bring out, well, we can negotiate this, we can make it a variable rate commission. I just need to make sure and disclose it to all the other realtors who are looking at it on the North Star MLS that I'm maintaining the right to be able to do that and reduce my commission. But I think the context I probably set it in is I want to advocate for you and for us and for you to make as much money as you possibly can for all the work that you're going to do. It really is double the work, even though it's perceived by a buyer and seller that it's so much less work. And so I would encourage you not to reduce your commission if you're unexpectedly and ironically representing both the buyer and then also the seller.
Okay.
But the point that I want to make sure and bring home to you is that if you plan to do that, if you know the personality type of your seller and you plan to do that, you have to write it in here. And then you also have to write it in the listing input form. So let's go to that listing input form because we touched on the withhold, the coming soon. The showing instructions form, that one's really self-explanatory, but let's go to the listing input form because it is a royal pain. I have on the recordings that you can look at, I have a very quick synopsis, but Jessica also asked me to record a little bit more detailed one. So you'd be able to, you'd be able to look at that one and read that one to give more detail as you need it, as you're filling this out. What I think is important to go through with a seller is these items 1 through 12, and I just summarize them. Then I make sure that the listing contract start date and the listing end date are the exact same as they are on your listing agreement. This is something that the seller signs and that you also as the agent signs. So I let them know, take a look. There are nearly a dozen pages here of forms that I have the option to include in your listing. The things that are in, there's a little key up here that says the things that are in black boxes are required. The things that are in black ovals are only required if you're listing on this on the MLS after you've actually sold it as a comp sold, and all the white boxes are actually optional. So ironically, when you look here, having a street, the house number and the street address is all optional. You don't have to put in an address if someone for their privacy doesn't want their address to be known. But you do have to put in directions to the house. Like, I find this some of these things so strange. You do also have to put in a property ID number. And so when I'm talking this through to a seller, I make sure that they know this is something that I'm going to do. I'm going to do very thoroughly. I'm going to be reviewing it a few times. What you don't need to put the pressure on yourself to read through all of that. What you do need to understand is that by giving us the permission to list your house on the multiple listing service, you're also acknowledging that all of the information I provide becomes property of the MLS. They assume no responsibility for any errors or omissions. I am required to continuously update the MLS on any status changes when it changes to active subject to home inspection, or active subject to association review when it changes to pending and closed. That we, under no circumstances, allow this listing to just be deleted unless we sign a listing cancellation form, so on and so forth. So they'll usually sign that really quick and easily and not even read through this form. Do you guys have any specific sections that you'd like me to give you more detail on in here, knowing that the black boxes are required, the black ovals are not, and the white boxes are completely optional?
Nope, seems straightforward. So we fill this one out.
And I would fill it out before you get there. And then I would legit use a yellow highlighter and highlight things where you say to yourself, like, God, what is the measurement of that garage? Like, I've looked at the history on the MLS. I see some general room measurements. I see some general square footage, but I don't know exactly what size the garage is. Or when it comes to this section here, 420 through 440, what is the foundation size? What's the above ground square foot? What's the below ground finished square foot as compared to complete square foot? It's even helpful, I personally think, to really measure and figure out what's the garage door height and width, because people with big SUVs and possibly boats and things like that will want to know. But if you
Yes,
have
that
this
came up
filled
in
out-
my
What's
last
that?
listing. So that came up in my last listing for the out building. I'm like,
Oh.
oh, I didn't measure the door.
That's right.
But my seller did it for me, and then
Good, perfect. And they're usually really happy to do that after the fact. But if you fill this out as thoroughly as you possibly can before getting there for the signing, and highlight some things that you want to ask them about, like something that I find I always am having to ask them about after the fact is, oh, okay, this is in an association. Now, is this on a private road? Is this on a city road? Knowing, are there actual sidewalks there? Are there actual streetlights there? Now, this is all optional, but if your job is to help them market it to the widest array of possible people, someone may only want to live in a neighborhood that has streetlights and sidewalks because they go walking every morning at 5 a.m. or something. So as detailed that you can make this, the better, truly the better. Something else that I always find myself having to ask either the seller or go back and look is, what's the foundation wall? Is it block? Is it poured concrete? Is there a sump pump? Those kinds of things are embedded in here somewhere, and I'm always having to re-ask. Though you guys are in a condo and a townhome, so does it have sprinkling systems? Does it have a security system on the building? In the complex, is there an exercise room? There's just a lot of things that you can fill out, and I encourage you to fill out to be as thorough as possible. Okay, so that's the listing input form. Any questions about the seller's property disclosure statement or the seller's property disclosure alternative?
If they do the seller disclosure alternative, do they need a third-party inspection report?
No, nope,
Okay.
it's an either or. So you either say, hey, I think it's a good idea for you to conduct an inspection and just literally attach it to the seller's disclosure alternative. Or in the case of a rental property, or maybe it's being sold by the family estate or something like that, they can just waive their right to disclose altogether. And there's like common misconception that you can only waive your right to disclose if you've never been there. Anyone can waive their right to if you've never lived there, I'm sorry. Anyone can waive their right to disclose. However, it may limit your pool of buyers, because a buyer and a buyer's agent may say like, this seems a little suspicious. Why aren't you disclosing what you know? Like, it doesn't seem like good integrity or good intention.
Okay.
So Melissa, in the case of what I'm gonna be doing, it's my neighbors, but they've never lived in the home, but their son's name is also on there, and he has lived there.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they should be able to fill out the regular
They really
disclosures,
should.
right?
They
Okay,
really should.
I will encourage that. I just wanted,
Yeah,
I mean,
it looks daunting because it's so long, but it really is very straightforward.
okay.
Now, something that I want to draw your attention to is what's called the amendment to the disclosure statement. So if the buyers of this townhome conduct a home inspection and find that the furnace is cracked and the furnace needs to be completely replaced, amending the disclosure statement to add any new learned material facts about that property is really, really important. So it's just a one-page amendment to the disclosure statement. They'll just write out a little synopsis here of what they learned so that it is properly documented. Like the original disclosure statement I gave you was what I knew to the best of my ability, but now I'm telling you that was inaccurate. We've learned from the home inspector that indeed there is a mouse infestation in the attic, and I now need to document that I've disclosed that. Just having it disclosed by their findings on their inspection is sort of weak. Like it's fine, but doing an amendment to the disclosure statement is really much more thorough, and it covers you a lot. Okay, we're gonna skip over well and septic. But do you guys have any questions about the lead-based paint disclosure? It's kind of a long one too, which I find a little weird. Because I've never, ever, knock on wood, have someone want to conduct a risk assessment for lead-based paint, but you just never know. It's the first time for everything out there.
Mhm.
Just a reminder, just the seller needs to fill out like either 16 or 18, and then the buyer's going to fill out the rest when they submit their offer back to you. You'll put it on as a supplement to the listing.
And that's only if it was built on or before 1978, right?
Exactly. Yep,
Okay.
good job. Yep, good job. I'm going to go back to the seller's estimate of net proceeds sheet. I really don't like those. I find to be tedious and annoying. We're going to skip over the showing and compensation agreement because it sounds like you guys are doing traditional listings. You're not like lining up a buyer and a seller. So just bringing to your attention that when a listing changes status, I really do want you to use this signed listing change form every time when it goes to pending, when it goes to closed. You don't have to. Our front desk does not require it, but I think it's just really, really valuable to say from your seller, okay, congratulations, this is going into the pending status, and I want you to be aware, have them sign it. You just never know if someone may find something that could be upsetting to them because they didn't feel like they were given proper notice of it. Okay. Amendment to the listing contract. So that kind of like the amendment to the property disclosure statement would be how you would change your listing to a variable rate commission if you found yourself wound up in that situation. So you do an open house, a buyer comes through without a realtor and they say, I love this and I want to make an offer today. And you present it, you write it up, because they agreed to dual agency, you present it to the seller and the seller says, well, sure, I'll accept this, but won't you reduce your commission? Because now you're representing both of these, like you're hogging this deal. And if you want to, you can say, yep, sure, I'll reduce my commission, but you need to amend the listing contract to include some language there that says, in the case of dual agency, I'm willing to reduce my commission too. And then you would also want to change And that would be used on one of the MLS change forms. You'd also want to change the listing on the North Star MLS so that all the other realtors who may have shown that property, who then see that you've sold it, dual agency, can rest at night knowing that you've disclosed to them it was a variable rate commission, even if it wasn't right away. Other things that you might use that amendment to the listing contract would be like, let's just say you're working with just the son who's been living in this townhome. And then eventually he says to you, oh, I wonder, should I have my mom and dad sign this too? Because like my mom and dad co-signed with me when I bought it. And he would go like, oh yeah, we should know that. So then you would amend the listing contract to add their names to it, for example. We have already talked.
And for them, because I have to have all three of them on the listing contract, correct?
You do. Yeah,
that's
you
what I
do.
thought.
And all three of them have to sign the purchase agreement.
Okay.
Is their son married?
Has a significant other. I don't know if they're married.
Ask, because
Yeah.
if they are and she has marital interest, she would need to have signed it as well.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's go back to this net proceeds sheet. So real estate rules say that you as a licensed realtor must disclose to all parties how you are getting paid. So it is a requirement of Keller Williams Preferred Realty in the best interest of consumer protection and to be as thorough in our disclosures as we possibly can, to have the seller fill out this estimate of net proceeds sheet at the time that you list the house and then also at the time that it goes under contract. So I will, when auditing, be reviewing these in both cases. So what I like to do is, let's just say you're listing this as a $200,000 condo. I like to write in a lower amount here and a higher amount here in the three columns. It could be 190, 200, 210. You decide the increments. Maybe it's 195, 200, 205. You get to decide completely. But we do want you to fill this out as thoroughly as you possibly can. So you would ask them, what's their mortgage interest amount? You could calculate what the cost per day of interest is, and then you could put in the per diem monthly interest. And just listen to the video if this is important to you. It's optional. These lines really are all optional. Listen to the video that Colin Manson does to give you detail on it. I just don't think you need to do it for these listings today. But you would want to put in if there's a second mortgage and what their second mortgage amount is. The per diem, I should go back. The reason I don't think the per diem is important is you cannot predict what day this is going to close. And so you would really only estimate the per diem once you knew what the closing date was. So you can do that in the second seller net sheet at the time of the purchase agreement. If there are any real estate taxes that are going to be due at closing, again, that's a proration depending on if they've paid their taxes already in May and October and how many months overlap. If they have for some reason, if they have a non-homesteaded property and they're selling it to someone who's buying it as their homestead, the person who's buying it as their homestead, their property taxes are actually going to go down once the certificate of resale value has been recorded at the county and once they get their first property tax statement. So some buyers may say to the sellers, hey, I know these property taxes are a little bit higher because you're non-homesteaded. I want you to pay the difference. And that's also in the purchase agreement. You're very likely going to write a 0 in here because it's just not going to matter. It's just that not likely going to be a non-homesteaded, nor is it likely that the buyer is going to ask for this difference to be paid. Times may change, but at the current state of the market, it is not now. If there were any deferred taxes or special assessments, either from the city or the townhome association, you would write that in there. If there's any special assessments from the current year, you would write that in there. Or if there are any levied for future years, you would write it on line 8. Pending assessments, line 9. All right, so most of these are all going to be zeros. I'm just going to put a 0 in here as well. All right, so then we split out to them what our commission is, plus our broker administrative fee, and what the commission is we pay to the buyer, and those then auto calculate for you, which is kind of nice. If we think there's going to be any lender commitment work orders or any VA funding fees, you would write that in lines 12 through line 15. But again, those blanks will be used once you know what the financing type is of an actual purchase agreement. For now, I honestly just leave them blank. I do like to write in here what 3% seller paid closing costs may be, because I want them to see a worst case scenario. Like if someone asks you to pay the full 3% in closing costs, this is what it's going to erode your net proceeds for. There is going to be a closing fee for the title company that they work with, and I just put in the largest amount here. It says the range of 400 to 650. You can check with your title closer and find out what the exact amount is. But again, this is just truly an estimate. Is there a doc prep fee? Yes, probably. So we're just going to write it in on the high end here. Is there a recording service fee? Yes, it's for the mortgage and the deed. So let's just write in that's going to be roughly $60. And if you have a closing that you have the settlement statement on hand for from the past, or if the Hoffmeisters have one for you, Sydney, you can look and see what their favorite title closer charges for all of these things, but you're very likely going to have all of these little nitpicky fees. Is there going to be a special assessment search? There sure is. Is there going to be a county recording fee? There sure is. There's going to be at least 2 documents, so let's just budget 100. Is there a state deed tax? Fortunately, that calculates that out for you as well. And then there's always a $5 conservation fee that's paid to the county. None of your condos and townhomes are going to have a well, so you don't have to fill that out. You'd fill the association dues. So whatever the association fee is for 1 month, I would write on there. Association document and certification fee, sure, just put in the 600. Is there going to be a home warranty on this house? You know, let's just be careful and let's just assume that the buyer may be asking for a home warranty. Is it in a city that there is a truth in housing inspection? They will have paid for that ahead of closing. So I would recommend leaving that as a 0. Is there a sewer and water municipality connection fee? There are some cities that have that. I don't know of many anymore. And then would there be any water tests, soil tests, so on and so forth? So this automatically calculates for you, which is nice. I'll oftentimes leave what their principal balance is blank until I've met with them. And then when you go through and do this again for the final contract sales price, you want to write that exact amount in there. But please, please, please have them sign this twice. And that's all I have for you. What do you think? Did we cover what you were looking for? Do you have any questions?
For arbitration,
Yeah.
so do we recommend that or just give them the option?
Yeah, so Keller Williams Preferred Realty's general opinion about arbitration is that we do agree to it. We encourage you as the realtor representing the buyer or the seller to sign agreement of arbitration. It's a personal decision, so you do not have to, but it is truly put in place, was created, and is intended to be a less expensive, hands-on, right on-site way of handling disputes should disputes arise after closing. What I want you to be sure and remember is even if someone declines it, whether it be the realtor, the buyers, or the sellers, don't upload the form with it just being a blank spot above their name. Make sure at some point to write in declined and then keep record of how your seller or buyer communicated that to you, whether it was on the phone or via a text or via an email. It is best to have it in writing if at all possible.
Okay.
If one person declines arbitration, it just does not become an option anymore. But most of the files that I added, I see everyone agrees to arbitration. A vast majority.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question in like that, not necessarily about the forms, but because again, this is like my first condo or a townhome. If being on like first floor versus third floor, does that affect the price point, do you think? Like, is one more desirable or?
I very much think it depends on the target market of the building and the location. So like my parents live in a condo, it's a 55 plus building and they're on the main level and they love it. They love that they don't have to shuffle things up the elevator, that they don't have to, navigate the stairs or wait for the elevator. But if this is a condo in downtown Minneapolis and it has like a stunning river view, it probably is better
Yeah.
to be higher up.
Okay, yeah, it's in Egan. I don't know. And I think it only goes up 3 floors, but.
Yeah, then I don't think I would place, as you're doing your CMA, I don't think I'd place any difference in market value.
Okay. I hadn't, but then I, as I was doing it, I'm like, oh, wait, I better ask this question.
Should I consider this? Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Cool. Well, good luck with your listings. I can't wait to see them come on the market.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and you guys have my number, so you can call me anytime. I'll gladly help, and of course, Jessica will too.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming today, you guys. Good luck.
See ya.